Morning everyone. This is a how-to video how to make a revised 40 deck of Magic cards that also functions as an Alpha 40 deck using revised cards. So if you want to try out Alpha 40 but don't want to spend a ton of money on all the Alpha cards, you can just use revised cards to try it out. And then you can also test your deck in the revised 40 league. There's a Facebook group. They've come up with rules. I'll go over those real quick. You need 40 cards in your deck, and you can have a maximum of 5 rares. 3 of them can be the same. You can have a maximum of 10 uncommons with a maximum of 3 can be the same copy. And infinite commons, except for Lightning Bolt, Curd Ape, those are restricted to 3 copies. And then there is a restricted list of one of each of the following cards: Balance, Brain Geyser, Channel, Demonic Tutor, Mind Twist, Regrowth, Soul Ring, and Wheel of Fortune, and no anti-cards. So what I have done is made a green-white revised 40 deck that fits those parameters. I took it out of the shiny sleeve so that we don't have any glare on the camera, but this is 40 cards, a white and green, all revised cards, so very affordable, nothing too expensive. I think Fast Bond is probably the most expensive card in the deck, but we'll put basic lands up there. We'll do green and white, and then I think there's some artifacts in here. Green. So we've got Plains, Disenchants, Swords of Plowshares, Plains, Swords of Plowshares, Holly Mine, Giant Growth, Plains, Swords of Plowshares, War Mammoth, Soul Ring, Land War Elves, Plains, Regrowth, Plains, Land War Elves, Forest, Land War Elves, Winter Orb, Sarah Angel, Birds of Paradise, Sarah Angel, Black Vice, Juggernaut, Forest, Fast Bond, Forest, 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 Armageddon. So these are our artifacts. These are our white spells. These are green spells. Forest, Plains, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 plains is what I'm using for the mana base. I generally do 15 to 16 lands, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I have fewer forests in the deck than plains, probably fewer green spells than white spells, but I'm also using Land War Elves, which produces green mana, so I don't need as many forests, because if I get an elf out, I can tap it for green mana. So there's our mana base. Then we want 5 rares, 10 uncommons, and the rest can be commons. So our first rare is Fast Bond. Our second rare is Birds of Paradise. I think that is it for greens. Armageddon is a rare, so these are all uncommons. And then I think Howling Mine and Winter Orb are the other rares in the set. And then we have uncommons. We're allowed 10 uncommons. So Regrowth is an uncommon. Sarah Angel and Swords of Plowshares are uncommon. Disenchant's probably common. Juggernaut, Black Vice, Soul Ring are all uncommon. So yeah, I think these are commons. So Regrowth 2 Sarahs, 3 Swords to Plowshares, a Soul Ring, 2 Black Vice, and a Juggernaut. Those are our 10 uncommons. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We also have 10 commons that don't matter too much. 2 Disenchants, 3 War Mammoths, 4 Llanowar Elves, and a Giant Growth. So those are the commons. So this is the 40 card deck in revised 40. It has 5 rares, 10 uncommons, 10 commons as well, no more than 4 copies of Llanowar Elves. And then if you're interested in Alpha 40, there is another league, Facebook league for Alpha 40 cards. And they have deck construction rules on their page as well, but they limit, they have different groups for types of cards, and you're kind of restricted for how many cards you can use in those areas. So for fast mana, artifacts that produce more than 1 mana, you can only use 1 card in your deck of those cards. So obviously, Moxes, Black Lotus, Power 9 were not reprinted in Revised, so those are not options. The only other card you could use in Revised 40 is Mana Vault, and that's an expensive card, so usually Soul Ring is good enough as your fast mana group card. There's a Power Group, and the only cards in Revised that were printed in the Power Group out of Time Walk, Time Twister, Fast Bond, Wheel of Fortune, Time Vault, and Ancestral Recall. So Fast Bond or Wheel of Fortune are your only 2 options. So we'll use Fast Bond in this deck. From the draw group, it's always good to have the ability to draw cards. So you're allowed 1 of 3 options: Brain Geyser, Howling Mine, or JM Day Tome. So we'll use Howling Mine from Revised. In the Destruction group, you can use Armageddon, Balance, Chaos Orb, or Nevin Earl's Disc. And Chaos Orb was not printed in Revised, so you can use one of these 3, and we'll use Armageddon, which destroys all lands in play. You're also limited to 1 of the 3 charms, which were printed in Revised: Crystal Rod, Iron Star, Ivory Cup, Throne of Bone, Wooden Sphere, Soul Net. I guess we could probably put in either an Ivory Cup or Wooden Sphere if we want to gain life from these white or green spells, but it'd be 1 of your uncommons, so you could swap out like Swords to Plowshare or Black Vice maybe for 1 of these if you wanted to. Those are common and popular also in Alpha 40, so they're very good. The banned list, you can't use any anti-cards or Mind Twist, so those were printed in Revised, but we just take them out. And then finally, there's restricted cards, which are usually really good and powerful. Channel, Copy Artifact, Demonic Tutor, Disrupting Scepter, Earthquake, Fork, Mana Short, Regrowth, and Stasis. So we'll use Regrowth from the restricted list. We're also using Winter Orb from the restricted list, Wrath of God, Volcanic Eruption, and the dual lands in Alpha. There's no Volcanic Island because it wasn't printed until Beta. So we'll just use the Winter Orb and Regrowth from the restricted list. And then there's a moderated list, which you're not allowed to use more than 3 copies of Berserk, Black Vice, Copper Tablet, Counterspell, Hurricane, Hypnotic Spectre, Ice Storm, Icy Manipulator, Juggernaut, Lightning Bolt, Orcish Oriflame, Psionic Blast, Stone Rain, Sinkhole, or Swords of Plowshare. So we have a couple of those cards in the Revised 40 deck. We're using 3 copies of Swords to Plowshare, 2 copies of Black Vice, 1 copy of Juggernaut, and so that makes it all Revised 40 compliant, also Alpha 40 compliant. So if you wanted to brew a deck like this with Revised cards and play in the Revised 40 group, it's very competitive, it's fun, and very casual. The games are shorter, Usually you can get 3 matches in, you know, less than 45 minutes or so. So about 10 to 15 minutes per match. It's pretty quick. It's a lot of fun. And then you could also, if you want to try out Alpha 40 but don't have the alpha cards, I recommend making a deck like this out of revised cards as an additional challenge, and then testing it with other Alpha 40 players and seeing how the deck fares against an actual Alpha 40 deck, or another revised 40 deck, or another revised 40 deck that matches the Alpha 40 parameters. So you can do a quick pile shuffle to make sure these are all mixed up. Usually just 8 little piles is good. And then we'll do a quick sample hand so you can kind of see how the cards look and feel in a deck. So we'll just shuffle these up real quick, just so you get the idea of how to shuffle your cards, just like that. So then in person, you would offer your deck to your opponent. If you're playing on a webcam, you just can make 3 piles and have 1, 2, and 3, like that, and have your opponent shuffle them up. Sometimes you can do like put the second pile on the third pile, on the first pile, and then you draw 7 cards. So in Alpha 40, the player who goes first would draw a card, but in Revised 40, you just pick and draw. So like this would be my opening 7. That's a pretty good starter. I would play Forest here, and I would tap that and probably play a Llanowar Elves. And then I would pass the turn to my opponent. And then they would do something, and then they would pass it back to me. I would untap and draw. And then we could also do, like, we could play another Forest. We could tap the Llanowar Elves for green. We could play a Fast Bond, put as many lands into play as we wanted. We could play it, then we could play a Plains. And we could take a damage from the Fast Bond, and then we could pass it over to them. And then they'll do something, and then they'll pass it back to us. And we will, let's do this. Let's tap Llanowar for green. 3 more mana. We'll cast a Juggernaut for 4. And pass it over to them. They'll do something and pass it back to us. Hopefully they don't play a creature or destroy the Juggernaut. We're gonna play another land. We're gonna play a Forest here. And we're going to attack with Juggernaut because he has to attack each turn. And then we're gonna tap Llanowar Elves for green, and we're gonna Giant Growth Juggernaut. And boom, Juggernaut. That would happen. We could also disenchant something that they have maybe, or regrow the Juggernaut if it dies, or the Giant Growth. So that's kind of the feel of Revised 40. If you use all alpha cards that were printed in Revised, it definitely has the Alpha 40 feel to it as well. I have other decks like this, so I think I will go ahead and make a couple other videos and show you what those decks look like. If you're interested in Revised 40, I encourage you to check out the Revised 40 Facebook group and brew a deck and play some games. And if you like this video, give it a like, give the channel a subscribe, and we can make some more of these. If you really like the video as well, feel free to share it with your local play group. Tell your buddies you want to try to make a deck like this and play it on the weekend. It's a lot of fun. I highly recommend checking it out. Thank you for watching, and we will catch you next time.